hopefully, you will like what you see, follow up, look at all the cool things they make online, and hopefully at future shows as well. So, to get things started, I just want to go through a quick introduction. I know you can see their names on the screen, and a lot of you may already know them, but I know we have some new viewers today who may not know all of these makers. So I just want to go down the list. If y'all can just say hello for me real quick, and then we'll get started. But Brian Gray from Edison Pens, hello, how are you?
Hello, thanks for having me today.
You got it. Greg Hardy from Hardy Penwrights. How's it going, Greg?
It's going great. Thanks for the invitation.
Awesome. Hey, Jim from Heinz Pens. How are you?
Great. How's everybody doing today?
Very good. And Dale Pencala from Opus Mecon. How are you, Dale?
I'm doing all right. Thanks.
Good.
How are you?
I'm very good. So I want to take things slow in the beginning, and then we'll ramp it up real quick. I want to give some of our new listeners who may not be familiar with y'all some background on why you do this, why you started making pens, what you're up to now, how long you've been doing this. So, Mr. Hardy, since you're closely adjacent to me in my screen, I think I'm going to pick on you first and tell people when you got started making pens and what you do in general these days.
I started making pens about 9 years ago, I guess. It was sometime the winter of 2011, 12, kind of in that time frame. And as a lot of artists and makers do, I was making kit pens, and it didn't take long to become frustrated with that. And over the years that followed, I slowly started looking at work by these three panelists, the other three guys on the panel today, and learning about their work and what they did, and kind of gravitated toward the artisan pen thing. Today, that's all we make. It's been about 3 years now that's all we do. We have some standard models that we make every day, and then I constantly have some top secret strange pen going in the background that's more jewelry work than anything, kind of over the top crazy stuff, and that's what I do nights and weekends. So that's what we do today.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get some of those secrets out of you today. That's one of my goals for this chat. Jim, I know you started knowing you a little bit, from seeing you at pen shows. I know you started with kit pens but that's kind of morphed into what you're doing now with, turning your own pens, making a lot of the hardware. So tell me how you got started, how long you've been doing this, and what's going on now.
So I think I turned my first kit pen, like most of us who got started, somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. And actually, it was up there in Detroit. I lived there the longest of everywhere I've lived, and I belonged to a woodworking club up there. I was doing mostly flat work, furniture, hand planes, marquetry. We used to make fun of the guys with lathes spinning wood around, and it was kind of like a novelty. But one of my friends gave a demo at one of the club meetings, said, "Anyone wants to try?" I said, "Sure." Bought a lathe that night, and the rest is history. I did that for a long time, took a break, and came back to it heavily in 2012. It didn't take me long, as Greg mentioned, to get bored with it again. There's nothing wrong with the artistry that goes into them, but as far as creativity, you're kind of locked into the initial pen design, and it gets real repetitive. So around about late 2013, early 2014, I saw Masters of the Fountain Pen with Hakase pens, and was mesmerized, and said, from here on out, we're going to focus on doing that. And as of 2017, really, was making solely custom pens, and we did our first pen show that year, and been doing it ever since. But I'm still one of the few people only doing this part-time. I still hold a regular, I wish it were a 40-hour-a-week job, but it's more like 60. So at some point, it'd be nice to be able to make this full-time. But for now, we do the best we can.
Just a follow up with Greg, since Jim mentioned the full time part time thing. What's your breakdown, Greg? Is this a full time? Is this a hobby?
It's a it started out as a hobby, and it reached the point where I was making pens about 30 hours a week on top of my school superintendent job and trying not to lose my marbles. And then, blessing of blessings, I retired from my career in schools about 2.5 years ago, June of 2018, and that immediately went to 60 hours a week here in the shop.
So what about you, Dale? How did Opus Mecane get started? What was the idea behind making the types of pens that you do, and how did this all get started for you?
Well, I actually like a lot of you guys. I started out as a hobby, and I'm a tool and die maker by trade. So this stuff kind of falls in line with what I've always done. But I started in 2009 under a company called WPI, or Wright Pens Inc. And then later on, I branded with a business partner. In 2016 we met, and it was in 17 when we actually did the branding. Started out like same thing like everybody else. They start out as component-based pens with kits, stuff like that, and kind of like Greg, I think it was that mentioned, after a while they kind of get repetitive, and then at the same time, you lose somewhat of what creativity to what you want to do. I got tired of knocking out finials and making and casting my own finials and making them fit other people's stuff. So I decided to kind of move in a different direction, and that's kind of into the artisan style of pen, kind of what we're doing now. So most of my pens, especially my latest ones, all my material and the names are a lot astronomy based because I have a strong interest in astronomy.
I realize that we have that in common, actually. So
who's that?
I said I no, you and I both have a common interest in astronomy and astrophysics and all that. So yeah, I'm learning. I know you guys halfway decent, but I'm learning a lot more than what I did before. So yeah, this is good for us as well as the participants, I think. So yeah.
Well, this is perfect for me, Brian, because for all the years I've known you, I don't think I know the origin story. So how did you get started doing this? My interest in nice pens probably goes back 17 or 18 years. And then all of our stories are very similar. I loved woodworking. Was it Jim that said you were into marquetry at one time as well? Because I love. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I was busy building marquetry furniture, and it was just fun. It was just a hobby. And then I had a wood lathe, and I realized that you could make these kits, from pens. And I already had an interest in fountain pens in general before I kind of got into woodworking. And then it was a hobby for a while. The pens started to take over woodworking more and more. And then similar to everybody else, I mean, nothing wrong with kits, but they're really limiting in what you can do with them. It's the creativeness is a little bit more difficult to really, I mean, I guess what I wanted to do was make sure that I was manufacturing everything. So I had total control over what I was building. So since I got out of college, I had a job in pharmaceuticals, and that went terrible for a while. I went through 3 layoffs in 3 years, I think. And right about the time of the 3rd layoff, the little pen business was just a website. It wasn't anything significant. And we're talking 15 years ago, 14 years ago. There were no such things as, well, the Fountain Pen Network, really, and Pen Trace. That was it. There really wasn't social media. Facebook was a brand new thing. So this is a good example as to how far back this goes, because my brother is a web developer at the time. And when it was time to kind of build my website, he said, by the way, there's this brand new thing called a blog. You got to do that. I'm like, and today it seems silly, but so
laid off from the job, and then I had no intention of really making pens. And this was 14 years ago, because I know that our anniversary is actually this month of the Edison Pen Company. So it's been 14 years, and I had no intention of making a living at it. I just did not have a job, and I was basically just doing something to keep myself off of unemployment, never thinking that it would take off. But, when you spend your weekends doing something versus spending, 40 hours a week doing it and more, then good things happen. And it just started to take off from there. And so we've kind of grown from there, where we have moved out to a larger facility and some employees, and it's like a real business now, so. Yeah, it's been quite a neat journey, and I think that all of us here have a lot of similarities, and that I think that we can all thank kit pens in many ways for sparking an interest, and then us wanting to take it a bit farther to see what we could do, and make our own, maybe a bit more creative pens. So yeah, thank you.
I think that's exactly right. And that's what the common thread I see between everyone. And Jim said something, and y'all all kind of said kind of the same thing. But Jim said, this is an expression of my creativity. So let's get each of y'all to talk about that a little bit, from the process of a new idea, or you want to try something new with a pen, or try out a new material, or try out a new process. So let me start with you, Jim. What is the process like when you say, we're going to do something new today? Does it start with just an idea in your head? Are you sketching things out? Are you buying materials to test? Like, tell me something about creating a new product.
So depending on what the idea is, it can really start with just a simple drawing. We've done a number of those. We could start with the idea for a material. As you know, and many people may not, we do probably half and half casting in-house and purchasing materials. There's 3 or 4 vendors that do such great work that I'll buy rods from them. But in-house, our standard line I cast, and then Elise will do all the specialty complex stuff. She's a painter and loves working with colors. Sometimes we'll just start off with a picture. If anybody's looked on the website, we have Arabian Nights. Elise's daughter brought us this picture and said, can we do a pen like this? And that's how that pen came up. And once in a while, we'll want to try a new shape. I'll start with a sketch and a whole slew of failed prototypes. And kind of go from there. We have experimented with different filling systems. We don't have the breadth of, say, Brian's group, but we're slowly starting to add more complex filling systems over than a cartridge or a converter or hydrolyzer. Those take a lot more planning. Those will get me on like Fusion 360 to start drawing stuff and dimensioning stuff. So, I guess it all starts with an idea in the back of my mind, or something we see in nature, or a picture. And we just kind of go from there and let it grow, sketch, prototype, until we're happy with what we have.
And what about you, Dale? You mentioned your love of astronomy, and like you can see some of those ideas in your pens. But one of the things that you do is a little bit different. Is you might have a pen line that might take like I have 4 pens, and they all kind of have a general theme. Are you thinking of like a singular idea and branching it out into multiple pens in a lineup, or does you just going at it with let me see if I can make something out of this idea I have and turn it into a cool pen?
Yeah, well, a good example of that, Brad, actually, is some of the photographs I've taken in my observatory would be the...
Wait. Observatory.
Yeah, I know. You just said observatory? All right, you're way ahead of me in astronomy.
Brian, what we have to do is a video feed, and I'll take you out to the observatory sometime. Yes, I have an observatory.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous already. This is awesome. We're gonna start talking about this instead of pens. You realize
right.
you're gonna just take the conversation away from this.
No, I'm not trying to at all. That's what I was. Not at all.
That's a good place for ideas. See, I'll get you back on track.
Yeah, no problem. That's exactly it. So I'll take pictures in my observatory. And in fact, later on, I can even show you one that I'm working on a material for. It's called the Orion Nebula. I've photographed, and I can share that. And that's where I start a lot of times with this new type of pen that I'm doing, the artisan style pens. And I'll take a picture and I'll try to make material that kind of mimics that picture. And one of them, which has been very successful, is the Northern Lights photograph that I took back in, I think it was 1999. I photographed, no, 2001. I take that back, 2001. And I took the picture and I matched the colors with the resin. And I myself am a person that manufactures my own resin. So I don't buy other people's resins and use them in my pens. I tend to try to work with my own personal resins, unless I have a special request or a custom order or something like that, for ebonite or something like that. But for the most part, I manufacture my own materials, and the pictures, astronomy based, is where I kind of draw that into the artisan pens.
So let me ask you, Brian, same question, but a little different. What gets you more excited, a new pen shape or a new pen filling system to create yourself?
I'm not sure how to answer that, because I have, like, my notebook with ideas of things that I want to develop, and there's a few. I mean, there's 2 or 3 things that I would love to develop as soon as I possibly can. But then, boy, it's the way that I do filling systems is I try my best to make sure that it can be adapted to any of our models. So if somebody likes our draw filler, I want that to be compatible with everything that we make. Now, there is one that I can't do that with, which is our Pearlette, because it's just too short of a pen to really have this draw filler function properly, and it's narrow too. And I'm not going to redesign the whole filling system just for one pen. So I guess the answer to that question is that I don't know if either one really has a huge bearing. The concept of the filling system is independent of the shape that it's going to go in completely, and if I can't adapt it to a certain shape like the Pearlette, then no big deal. So which one gets me more excited? I guess it depends on the shape and it depends on the system. I hate to be vague in that answer, but it's different every time. I do have a shape in mind that I'm really excited by, but there's others that I haven't been really, hyped up about, or I've been really excited about. And then some filling systems where I'm like, this will come together later. I thought this would be, you know what I mean? So I don't have a great answer for that, because they're kind of independent from each other, and each one strikes me differently every time that I come up with something new, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think that's totally fair, and we'll definitely explore that a little bit more. Now, Greg, I'm very curious about, like, you exploring your creativity, because on one hand you have we'll call it mainline pens. You have your standards, right? And then you might just make one of something. And I guess I'm curious on what gets you started on those singular pens. Is that, an idea that you wanted to explore? Is, like you mentioned earlier, like, is it someone else's idea? Where do you think, where does that creativity spark come from for those really special edition projects?
They come from any number of places. Listening to the way you ask the same question to the other makers, sometimes I'll get a new piece of material in my hand, and the brain blows up with ideas about what to do with that. I'm more inclined to be affected by very traditional materials. If I get a new Conway Stewart blank in my hands, that's what trips my trigger personally. Probably the hardest lesson in pen making for me has been to not make what I like necessarily, but to make what customers like. And that's I'm really into my favorite pens.
Everyone's
exactly. I was gonna say everybody just nodded their head.
I like pens a lot, and yeah. I like brown pens, and I can't sell them, but I've got them. you know. But with regard to the the things that end up in my heirloom collection on the website, the really weird stuff, they're triggered by everything and anything. Literature in the last 6 months, pieces of literature of one sort or another have been an inspiration for those sort of. I've got a pen that I'm working on right now that is probably 2 years in the. I've got a special notebook, a special sketch pad just for those strange pens, and we've been doing a little bit of growing over the last year, and that notebook keeps getting moved further and further back on the desk, unfortunately. But
I'm nodding my head with that too. Same.
well, unfortunately, that happens.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
really does.
Absolutely.
And you know, part of I'm starting to work now on my goals for 2021, and you know, last year at this time, one of those goals was that my son Gavin, who works in the shop, would spend more time working in the shop, and that happened, but that created a lot more need for me to be doing things with him. So now I need to set a new goal, which is to get that notebook from the back of the desk and work on some of those special things. But this next one is based on some of the writings of Fiona MacLeod, who wrote about the ancient Celtic people, particularly the Gaelic-speaking Scots in Highlands of Scotland, and it's going to be built around some special materials and special metalwork, but it can come from anywhere. It really can.
All right, this next question I'm going to run through all of y'all again. Y'all been doing awesome with these answers. I'd love to. We could talk for hours about all this stuff, but I'm going to ask this to Dale first because he was actually the inspiration for this question. And I've known you guys, you know, most of y'all for many years, and I feel from my level of experience in this industry that if you sat me down in front of a table of 50 random pens, I could pick out each of your pen. Like, I think I could do that. But we have these listeners and these viewers out here who are trying to figure out, hey, you know, what do these guys do? And, you know, what is special to them and what makes their pen special? So what I want to know this time around is, what are you the most proud of that you're putting on display with your pen brand and your makers? What do you think is your like distinctive style maybe for your brand? And I'm going to go with you first, Dale.
Well, prior to about a year and a half ago, I'd have to say watch parts. People knew me from my watch part pens and my steampunk pens. And then some of the last ones I've done, I've been putting diamonds in them. And so those, with the exception of, as of now, I would say a year or so ago, would probably put my pens, that's what people would know me by looking at my pens. Now I would have to still say with the new versions of pens that I'm coming out with, or my line in the Cosmos collection, is astronomy based. And I think people are gradually finding out that I have a strong interest in astronomy. And again, that kind of goes back to some of the pictures that I take, and that's how I put them into the pen. So I can't say as of right now, because we haven't had a show where I can show my pens, my new line. I mean, literally just come out with them and I can't go and show them, you know. So it's hard to say I think that's where it would go. But I think if we were at a show, I know my display, because I did a slideshow with my observatory, the photographs that I've taken, and I had those alongside of some of the newer materials that I was manufacturing or casting here in house. And people started, this happened in Baltimore, by the way, that was the first and only show I did this year. And people, it really gravitated the interest when they started seeing the scrolling pictures of the images that I've taken. So I'd have to say currently, if I had to, I would say astronomy-based pens with at least the names of them anyway.
So, Brian, do you think there is a feature of Edison pens as a whole, Or do you think that's kind of hard to pin down because there's, lots of different styles and different ways to make a pen? But or would you say Edison Pen has like a cohesive idea they're trying to present as a company?
It's I don't know that there is anything really super specific to answer that question with. We offer two lines. One is our signature line, which is you come to us and we do everything 100% custom, top to bottom. But then we also do our production line, which is going wholesale out to retailers who then resell. Now, there's no customizations on those pens. Of course, that's kind of like our standard issue. So I think that, the production line certainly, can you look at something that's really distinct there? I don't know, because, it's the one thing that I have found, and I think that a lot of us probably, we're all going to nod our heads to this one, I'll bet, is that I'm always continuously amazed at how sometimes the most wild material, it really sells and goes crazy. And it may sound silly, but like with our custom pens, because the sky is the limit with all of us, really, the most rare order that I get is good old solid black. That's a strange order for me, is getting, I just want a black pen, because, you can go to other non-custom pen companies to have that done. So, since the selection is so wide and so vast, and there's hundreds upon hundreds of materials that are at our disposal, all of us, that it's maybe hard to define that one distinct style. Now, I do think that maybe people could think of us about some unique filling systems. And a lot of that comes from, and this may go back to your original question about inspiration, what I would do and still do, although unfortunately there's been no opportunities this year, is at pen shows, I would always, and other pen makers, I would highly recommend this. I would go to the junk tables of all vintage pens, of all of the ones that I can't remember his name, Rich. Can't think of his name right now, but there's lots of tables at pen shows that just have old junkers, spare parts. I would grab those and look at how early American, and of course there's plenty of vintage European models and pens at these shows, and I would get them so I could take them apart and see what they did and figure out how they came to this idea. And some people would say it was a shame to cut an old vintage pen in a cross section, but I'm also picking out one where maybe the cap lip was completely cracked anyways, and it's not exactly a collector's item. So that was certainly helpful early on in discovering how old companies used to do this, because in many ways I feel that the 40s, 50s, 60s was easily the golden age of fountain pens, as far as I think so. No one's making a snorkel today. No one's making a lot of these original fountain pens where for a time during that age, there was definitely moments where coming up with a more exotic filling system than Parker has or Schaefer has, and back and forth, was kind of like a thing. Then ballpoints happened, and the fountain pen became less of a utilitarian instrument, and it fell off the map for quite a while. But there's been a huge resurgence lately. In the last, I've been doing this for full time 14 years, and the market is growing. It's really neat. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of may have gotten a little off topic there, but filling systems and the way that I came about them oftentimes was just destroying and tearing apart old vintage pens that I wouldn't feel bad, and I hope nobody else would feel bad about tearing apart and destroying, to see what made them tick. Especially considering that I want to recreate them. You know what I mean? So perhaps that's a long answer to your question. I apologize though.
No, I think that's pretty cool, and it makes a lot of sense. So, Greg, what do you think when you want to present Hardy Penwrights and you want other people to think about Hardy Penwrights? Is there anything specific you want them to immediately come to mind?
I think, whether I wanted it to happen or not, I think metalwork, my metalwork probably was the thing that ended up setting my pens apart from many of the other makers, because we're making our clips in house. I'm not purchasing clips from a manufacturer, and whether somebody likes my clip designs or not, that aside, in reference to your remark, Brad, when you lay out a bunch of pens by artists and makers, if everybody put their hands on a Brooks primary manipulation blank and made a pen, you'd play hell telling them apart. and that's just the reality. Right now you just play hell getting your hands on a primary manipulation blank. But my clips, if I set my pens not above but apart from a lot of other makers, and that's been a drawing card for customers for me.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It's definitely something that's caught my eye, and kind of the same a little bit with Jim. Like, I've gotten to know Jim over the years and gotten to always check out his pens. They're always cool shapes, cool materials. But what always stood out to me when I'm looking at Jim's pen or unique clip designs or this belly band that you can tell has some kind of handmade qualities. Is that fair and accurate? Like, when I think of Heinz pens, that's what I think. What do you think, Jim?
I think more like crazy color.
Yeah. I'm down with that too.
And just back to your point, I do a lot of my cat bands and things like that. I don't make as many clips as you may think I do. I love making pens, and my metal skills are average at best. But I can't stand making clips. Now, that helps keep my price point down for the consumer. If somebody wants a handmade clip, and you've seen a number of them, when I set my mind to them, I do a good job. And there's still one or two models that I make the clips for. But it's not something I relish doing every day.
Yeah.
But also, if I can jump in on that from a design standpoint, and I'm sure that all of us probably agree with this, if you're using a material that is visually striking, especially like the one that I see in Jim's background right there, and I'm sorry, I didn't want to say crazy material, something that's visually busy and visually really attracts your attention. I don't know that you want your eye distracted with a band on the blind cap and a big clip, and then maybe a center band around the cap lip, because those materials you want to take center stage, and you don't want to confuse the viewer's eye, and not confuse, but you don't want to distract their eye from what the feature is, and it's that amazing material. So many times those very visual materials are best being clipless or very minimal hardware, or maybe a tiny roll stop or something. So in cases like that, I guess that when I'm looking at pens with more hardware, I typically lean towards, whether it sells or not, because it seems like what I want to do, it seems like materials that I choose is the opposite of what I think will sell, But, if there's a pen that has lots going on with hardware, I personally feel that a solid color, or maybe a color with a tight pattern, is going to do better than a pen that has streaks going across, and then that streak breaks when it gets to the ring, or the streak is disrupted when it gets to the blind cap. Keep that visually going all the way through the barrel and around the bottom of the barrel, and it looks amazing. So to Jim's point, I think that when you're using materials like that, it's better not to load it up with hardware.
I'll give you an example. Folks may recognize my Bifrost pen. It's Mackenzie's oil slit pattern. We did that one back in DC 2018. Very simple design, straight. You get the screw post, the cap on the back, and the only adornment besides the material and the colored nib is a little mermaid rainbow medallion that sits in the body frame.
Yeah.
I've made that and put a clip on it because I don't know about y'all. I have about 50-50 customers who love pens without clips and customers who have to have a clip. I had somebody insist on a Bifrost with a clip. I shipped it and made it. It looked ridiculous. That it doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. So, sorry, didn't mean to make you laugh, Greg. So what I'll do is just as you say, Brian, I'll find a minimal clip. If somebody's got to have one for like that pen behind me, We will put a clip on it, but it'll be just a regular nickel. Nothing flashy, nothing fancy, nothing wide or gaudy, because it's the material that you're buying that pen for, not all the hardware and adornments.
Yeah.
Then again, I wouldn't buy this Sailor, without the center band and the cat band.
Yeah.
But this isn't going to come
trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me. I want to make sure we get some questions in, but I really have one question that I want to ask all of y'all, and we'll try to make this quick. And it's the idea of Grail pens, and us consumers. We always think of like, what's the ultimate pen for us? But I don't think I've ever asked a maker if you could make your own Grail pen, either if it's for you or for sale or for a museum or whatever. Is there something you have in your mind that would be your ultimate pen? Brian, I want to start this with you. Is there such a thing as a maker's Grail pen to make for you?
I have a prediction in that I think that all of our answers are going to be underwhelming to this question. I see heads nodding, right? I mean, because especially with all of us taking all kinds of custom requests and all kinds of customizations to our pens, a lot of times the neatest thing about that is that a customer will come to me, and I'm sure to everybody else here, and propose something that we never even thought of. And it's like, that's a pretty good idea, or that's a really terrible idea, but I'll do it for you. You know what I mean? So we're pushed in all directions of creativity, which is wonderful. It really is a great thing. But, the last time I made a pen for myself was about a year ago, and I just wanted to do it because I hadn't done it in literally about 8 years. And when you get into this as a business, and when you're doing it full time, and when you're spending 40 plus hours and you have employees, and it's not always something that you think to yourself as, I got to make that Grail pen for myself. For me personally, I'm so entrenched in my own line, my own ideas, my own things, even with the creativity that my customers will gift me, if you will, by what their ideas are. A lot of times my Grail pen will not be one that I'm going to make. For instance, probably the most favorite pen in my collection is a Bexley 2007 and it has special meaning to me because way back when I first started, Howard with Bexley, and he always has been this way, was wide open with information. It just became a very close friend. I would ask him questions that many people would think is kind of top secret, and he would be very open with everything. And I've taken that attitude with other pen makers asking me the same thing too. So my Grail pen is probably by someone else that I admire as a pen maker, and that has special meaning to me. So, I mean, I love Pilot MYUs, like the 70s MYUs that had the especially the striated ones. Those are great, but that's not going to turn me on nearly as much as getting a pen from someone who's been my friend for 12 years or however long it's been, and it's a really neat thing to get one from them, especially as entrenched as we are day to day building our own stuff. So it's not a thing where it's even on my mind, like, what is my Grail pen and when will I build it and how will I build it? Now, I said I built one for myself a year ago. It was a Beaumont draw filler in what we call Black Rose, which is one of my favorite acrylics. I put a little ink window in it, and it was just one of my favorite materials, one of my favorite models personally, and I wanted to outfit it with the filling system that I liked as well. So that's not exciting. You know what I mean? It was just another pen that we made. So now maybe I'm wrong. The three other guys here might have a completely different answer, but I think that our real answers are kind of underwhelming as entrenched as we are in this,
Yes, I think you said a lot of good things there. I think we might find the common answer that your Grail pen is to make something for someone else. Like that seems to be like probably the most important thing that all of y'all have in common. Do you have any thoughts on this, Greg? Like, is there something you just outrageous that you've ever wanted to make for yourself, or you're fine creating and sharing your work with other people?
Yes, and yes. I will end up, I'm actually getting ready to make another pen for myself just because the one I'm using now that I made, which is It's startlingly simple. I just don't think you'd be impressed. That's just all there is to it. And actually, the next one I'm getting ready to make is going to be a commemorative pen. I'm going to do a limited run of them, but I want the prototype for myself, and it's really going to be a knockoff of about a 1960 Osmeroid 85, because my art teacher carried that pen forever and ever and ever, and he just passed away about a year ago. And we're adding some Celtic knot work. He also was very much a working Celtic artist, but really the more thrilling thing for me would be to do some outrageous pen for someone else, that said, Greg, here, read this book, and then I want a pen about it, or whatever.
Yeah. What do you think about this, Jim? Has there been anything that you've wanted to make for yourself that's outrageous, or are you kind of in the same boat as everyone else?
This will probably be a little embarrassing. I have yet to make myself a pen.
Yeah,
I get that. Like,
I'm not
I get that.
surprised. Yeah.
I thought I'd make one for myself. I use it for a while, and then somebody's like, "Oh, I really like that. Can I buy it?" And off it goes. I'll be honest. My Grail pen is a Hakase green celluloid and blonde buffalo horn, just like I watched in that video so many years ago.
Yeah.
One day I'll order one, and I know Mr. Tanaka is not making anymore. He passed on, but they're still making that pen. But if I can make someone's Grail pen, and I've made a few that people have said, this is my Grail pen, that's the best feeling in the world. There's nothing better than that. And I still giggle today. Greg's heard me say this. Whenever I make a pen and it screws together the first time, if I'm cutting the threads, it makes me smile. When I go a pinch smile and somebody's like, oh, I gotta have that, and they buy it, I'm amazed. It's a very humbling experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was mostly done. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is, as a result of this, I think what we ought to do is we're going to have a 4-way Grail exchange. So I'll make one for Jim, and Jim make one for Dale, Dale for Greg, and Greg for me. And we're going to have, like, we've never had these Grail pens before. Now that everybody realizes that it's kind of an underwhelming thing for us. Well, I don't want to say it's an underwhelming occurrence when you figure out that we really don't necessarily have those. The only exception, I think, is that I did something early in my career, and I kept doing it, and I still do it today, in that if there's a pen that I'm really excited by, and usually this comes in the form of an artist proof. So if we're doing a limited edition of 150 pens, the first one will be the artist proof, and we engrave it AP. What I've done is, over the years, I've sent many of those pens to my parents, and then my parents hang on to those. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. And they put them in a box that I gave them. They've got all these things. And so someday, maybe my Grail pens that I've actually made is when my parents give that back to me. You know what I mean? So that's something that I've stuck with over the years, and it's been really neat, and they appreciate it.
That's very cool.
I don't remember what's in all of them right now. So someday when that comes back to me, it'll be a really neat day.
You think about this, Dale, like, because I look at your pens and I could see kind of the most outrageous Grail pen of, you could do anything you wanted, like with materials and style. Have you ever thought about for yourself?
Well, boy, oh boy, Brian hit the nail on the head on a couple of points, and I'm probably going to embarrass myself. I never make pens for myself. Generally, the pens that I keep for myself are scrap or prototypes, parts that I'm piecing. Here's a really good example of it right here. I lost a cap on the one, and the section I lost on another ones, and this is my Franken pen. So I really have never made anything for myself. Grail pen. I don't really have what I'd call Grail pens, a Grail pen for myself. I have something that I have an idea that I wanted to do, and I did it. It's here. This is for me. This one here. would probably be the coolest pen I think that I come out with, but many might think it's ugly. It's big. It's definitely oversized. And it would probably be something like this. I put a Frank Mueller dial in this pen. It's a triple pour, and there's I don't know how well you can see it, but in the center post, that's a 5-point diamond. And then we were talking about things that are different. So the finials on here are actually posts. They're wheels. This is a balance wheel, and then as you rotate it, it kind of magnifies. And then this one is the same thing. This is actually an escapement wheel. I used to repair watches back in the day with my grandfather. And this barrel here, I actually ended up having to make because I lost the original pen barrel for this. So it goes back to those types of things. And so that's, I don't want to call it a grail pen, but probably the most challenging pen that I've made. And that's being able to utilize a diamond in it with a triple pour in order to put things in the barrels the way I want them. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, I know we're running out of time. I know Corinne is going to want to get us out of here, but I want to try to take on a couple of these questions in the chat. And Corinne, you just cut me off, but I have a few I want to get to, and I want to start with Laura's. She had two questions up front that I think are both important to the time we're living in. And I'm gonna ask them both at the same time, and we'll go around the horn real quick, and y'all can give me some answers. How has the pandemic affected your businesses? You know, what kind of changes have you seen? And it's pretty clear for anyone watching, we're all a bunch of men on this panel. What women pen makers are you looking at right now, and who's doing good work, and who should we all be checking out? And Greg, can I start that off with you?
Sure. I want to immediately address the women makers. There's, Renee at Scriptform is a fabulous maker. A new maker in Britain, Meg it's Black Robin Pens. You can find her on Instagram, and she's a sweetheart. Someone asked me a question asked this very same question at one of it might have been the DC Pen Group last month, and in the chat section, and I told her that the one woman maker, she also noted that all of the makers happened to have beards at the time. Everybody's bearded on the screen right now too. And I made it clear that Black Robin Pens is a female pen maker and that Meg does not have a beard. She appreciated me making that. Meg appreciated it. But COVID, just quickly, COVID, it was I have one person who works in the shop with me who happens to be my son. I also happen to have a 92-year-old father-in-law who lives here with us. And Gavin's wife flies in and out of Milwaukee to here every 5 or 6 weeks. And so they were kind of staying away from the house. Nobody wants to kill Grandpa with the COVID virus. And so there was a pretty slow period in April, May for us, and it wasn't a slow in sales; it was slow in production. But things seem to be a little more comfortable for us now, and and I know all of these guys are going to say the same thing. We've had to approach the way we sell pens, promote pens differently. With the pen shows not happening, I think Dale presents a shining example for us today, this weekend, that the virtual pen show thing can be a pretty impressive event, as Dale's has turned out to be. So, that's what's happened to us. And thanks, Dale, for doing this.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, by the way.
Jim, do you have any thoughts on either how the pandemic has played out for your business? Not getting out to pen shows. Any female makers you follow that you want to mention?
Renee, she does amazing work. I've always wanted to meet her in person. I know she did shows before I started doing them, so we've never had the opportunity to meet. We've chatted from time to time. I have a female apprentice. If I can ever get her back in the shop and hone her skills, she shows very good promise. She's my daughter's best friend. So yeah, there's a few, and Maker Meg, like you mentioned, Greg, she's recently in the last year come on the scene and does an excellent job. So there are female makers out there. I don't think they promote themselves much. But as far as COVID goes, you know, and it's hard for me to tell whether it's my business has gone up because of COVID or it's a natural growth curve. In the advent of not doing pen shows, we have been more active online. I think if anybody asks about Heinz pens, the one thing you can say is you're not inundated on Instagram or Facebook with ads and pictures constantly like some of the smaller makers out there. When I have something, when I post it, I'm proud to post it. It's not just, oh, here's the 6 things I made today in the shop. Look, I'm an IT guy. I'm a software engineer by trade. I've been that way for 20 years. I'm a classic introvert. Francisco, and you know Francisco, Brian, is like the yin to my yang. If I didn't have him, I'd still be in obscurity somewhere. I go to DC and I got to come home and stay by myself for a week in the garage and just tone it down. Not that I don't like meeting people. It's uncomfortable for me. But in my career, I've had to develop this open persona because I manage people, and you can't just be Sheldon in the corner, you know, doing the thing. So I have those ups and downs. So my online presence up until this year has almost been non-existent. So as Greg pointed out, changing the way you market because of COVID, whether it's my natural growth curve because word of mouth is traveling, I'm just making better things, or is it due to that increase in online presence? Hard to tell, but we have done well this year overall.
Great. What do you think about either of these topics, Dale? So I know you and Brian, and I'll get to Brian in just a second, generally like pen shows, that's a big inventory thing for you. So what has the pandemic shown you about how your business is going?
That I don't do well enough online, to be honest with you. I do. I mean, last year I did, I think 12 shows around the United States. That's how I sold my pens. I've had to learn. I'm not a person, I don't follow a lot of people. I don't like social media as far as constantly being online and posting and commenting and stuff like that. I'm more of a constructive type of person, and that's not just, I'm not taking anything away from people that like to do that. I just am not, and I'm not good at it. Trust me, Corinne, she constantly yells at me about things, but
me too.
Yeah. But
me too.
Yeah. But
True.
I'm learning. I'm learning, and I'm not good. I'm learning I'm not good at it, and I'm learning how to do it, I guess. And as far as lady pen makers, women pen makers, I'm somewhat embarrassed about that because, again, I'm not online and I don't follow people. I did hear about this Renee. I have heard about her. And if there is another lady that I would actually bring up, she's actually, she makes clay-based pen barrels. Her name's Tony Ransfield. She makes some incredible stuff. So she really is she does a wonderful job.
Awesome. So Brian, how has the pandemic worked out for you, not being able to get out to pen shows for pretty much most of the year?
Yeah, let me address the women pen makers first. We're all going to nod to Renee. She's an amazing pen maker, and also a wonderful person too. She's really, it's interesting because I've never met her live, but it's amazing how you can develop friendships through emails. You know what I mean? I feel like I know her really well, but we've never actually met. But I have to give a vote towards, a lot of people see me as the face of the company because I put myself on camera with announcements and social media and all this stuff. But I have to put a vote towards my wife. My wife, Andrea, has been with this the whole way. You know, when our son was born, she was more of a full-time mom than a pen maker, but she's been as much of a pen maker and designer, you know, for the last 12 years, 13 years or so, as much as I have. So even though she probably doesn't get the recognition that she deserves, and I would definitely put, you know, designs will oftentimes be the both of us, or, you know, Andrea, I need help with, what do you think about this? How will this material match this, and do all this type of stuff? And then of course she's busy every day doing the grunt work, which is sanding and polishing, and that's a very, very valuable commodity. So I got to vote for my wife on that. But
Absolutely.
I'll give equal credit to Renee as well. But as far as COVID goes, you know, I don't know if it's different for me. You know, there's 5 of us on payroll at the Edison Pen Company. And so when this thing whole hit, the first 2 months were pretty bleak, to be honest with you. Now, I won't get too far down this road, but we've always worked ourselves so that we have a substantial contingency fund stuck away for emergencies, because fountain pen is a weird industry to be in. It really is. You know, anything could happen real quickly with this, and this is a good example. Now, we didn't need to go into that contingency fund because of the payroll protection program. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for that, we would have been in the red for a good 2 months. Had I not, I mean, I told our employees, there's no way that you're going to be jobless. You know what I mean? And if that ever changes, I'll let you know as soon as I know. I do want to, I mean, the payroll protection program was big. So the first 2 months were terrible because terrible. Basically, our largest cost is labor. And so with the payroll protection covering that, that made things so much easier for us. And we had about the same months as we normally would in that time period, which was phenomenal, because you can imagine how stressed out a small business owner is during all this crap, you know? So that definitely helped us. And the first 2 months, not good if you just if you took the payroll protection out of it. But then it seemed like people who are customers, and I mean ours as in everybody here, I think that the first 2 months, everybody was very careful with their money. And then after that, it seemed like, okay, you know, things are at least to where I'm financially, I wasn't hit like I thought I would be, or maybe they were. But overall, after those last 2 months, things have been mostly business as usual. What has a bigger effect on me is, holy smokes, up until not last week, but the week before, up until then, we had only taken 3 days off the whole year, you know, because our facility is only 8 minutes from my house. I'm going to sit at home, you know, I mean, you know, I'm going to go in and at least do something for work. So it was really getting to be a drain on me. And I didn't realize how mentally and physically I was just getting worn down until the week before. I just said, frankly, to hell with this. I'm just going to put out an email greeting that I'm gone, and I'm just going to take the rest of this week off. And then come Saturday that week, I was like, I might need to do this again for the end of the year, because it was just getting to where we're just getting really, really worn down. And that was very important for us. And, you know, so yeah, it's thank goodness for, I don't know if it's the nature of our customers or the demographics of our customers, but I don't know that any of us have really been affected tremendously by this compared to many other industries, many other areas where unemployment is really a problem. I feel that we've done pretty well. And certainly if we didn't have the payroll protection program, we would have gotten through. We would have been fine. But I'm glad that we are where we are today. And thank goodness it hasn't had really that big of an effect on us except those 2 months.
Yeah, and we certainly all appreciate our customers, and we appreciate everyone watching, joining us today, hanging out, learning about all these makers. Any last words before we get out of here? I know Corinne has been sharing all of your websites in the chat while we're talking. I wanted to say thank you to Greg Hardy, Jim Hines, Dale Pincala, Brian Gray. Y'all have all been fantastic. I know there's also going to be some breakout rooms for some of our viewers and chatters to come and learn more and see more about what y'all do. And I know Corinne is going to work on that so and get all that set up. So unless there's anything else, I just wanted to say thank y'all. This has been really fun. And again, I want to thank Dale for going out there and making this Detroit virtual pen show happen. Someone needed to take the lead on that. It was great to see how this has worked out. And I think this has been a great experience. So thank you, Dale and Corinne, for all the work y'all put in for doing this.
Yes, thank you. And then Brad,
Yeah, no.
Brad, we need to thank you as well. Thank you so much for helping us out today. Yep.
So thanks. Brad,
Can't wait to
show me
see
the
y'all.
arm.
Yeah.
Show me the
Brian
arm.
just took. Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing, Brad. Thank you for doing this for us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see everyone in person again, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks very much. So I'm going to enable breakout sessions. You will get assigned automatically. I will be checking to see that we've got Brian, Greg, Dale, and Jim in one of the 4 rooms that are going to be set up. That's your opportunity. They're going to rotate between, and we're just going to keep everybody in the same room. So if you don't want to visit a breakout session, if you feel like that might be a little too chaotic, you are welcome to contact these pen makers individually through their websites. I've been sharing those pretty regularly. And thank you so much. As I said earlier, this has been recorded for later upload to YouTube. So if you missed a portion of it, you can watch it later. And here we go. Let's go into breakout sessions.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.